Hello and welcome to the Life by Design podcast, brought to you by Strategic. This podcast is all about helping you live your great life. Hello and welcome back to the Life by Design podcast. This week I'm joined by Laura Powers, a senior advisor and partner here at Strategic.
Hi, Jay. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We had you on before talking about the LGBTQ plus community and just general kind of like financial planning and insurance, stuff like that. Yeah. This podcast in particular, we're going to focus on retirement planning, estate, that sort of topic.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great.
Great. So I know that in the community, there's definitely challenges with employment and job security. Yeah. And so one of the questions I had was, how can that affect retirement planning for these folks?
Yeah, that's a good question. In addition to job insecurity, there's also the concern they have oftentimes less mobility. Mm-hmm. What that means is, for example, if they have a hard time finding somewhere else to work, they may very well stay in, a position or with a company that they're not happy with. Mm-hmm. That's the less mobility part, and that can limit them significantly from being able to go on to other layers within that company, or within being able to move out and onto another endeavor. With job insecurity, that poses a different set of challenges, because if you don't have a job that offers a 401k, for example, or offers health insurance, it's extremely difficult to meet your day-to-day needs, let alone plan for retirement.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't have the ability to save in a retirement plan, like a 401k or a 403b, for example, you're missing out on a tremendous savings opportunity for the long term to get you to that retirement goal.
Yeah, and I think, not just this community, but I think everyone too, one of things that we see sometimes is people forgetting that they even had a 401k, like at another company, because it was. I
find that sometimes with folks, yes.
Yeah, like years ago, right? And then you're like, well, what other stuff do you have? So what's something that, let's say I'm going to be moving on from a job, like what's something I can do to make sure I'm tracking that and keeping mm-hmm. that on the forefront of my mind?
Well, number one, I would always go to check the beneficiary. Before you even worry about consolidating or rolling that money out or whatever it is, make sure you're checking the beneficiary on that. You mentioned estate planning. That's estate planning 101 right there, is your beneficiaries. Make sure that they designate, name who you want. Next of kin might not necessarily be recognized in some states. Mm-hmm. And you just don't want to leave anything up for interpretation when it comes to those things. So, when you're getting into things like retirement planning and you're changing a job, you want to make sure you don't forget about that 401k, because, well, I guess a low-hanging fruit reason is you want to make sure that your money is managed properly over the long term. Right. So, you invest it in one manner, you leave a job, and then it's been sitting out there for 5 years, 10 years, you've forgotten about it. You haven't taken the time to look into your options, haven't made any investment changes, there's a good chance you missed out on some really decent opportunity to change how that investment account is structured, and then making sure that it aligns with your goals and your risk tolerance.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes depending on where you're going, you have opportunity to like roll it over into your next one, mm-hmm. but there's also... I think one of the big things sometimes people forget about is these 401ks, these IRAs. Those are assets, right?
They are.
And depending on the timing and where you are in your life, they can be investable assets.
Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, that's the largest asset that they have, maybe outside of a home, if they own a home. And that is not something that you want to lose sight of. I know. I love that 401ks, for example, are such an easy savings opportunity. Yes. Set it up through payroll, you put in your percentage, it goes through like clockwork. Wonderful. That said, oftentimes they don't get the attention that they need. So it goes back to your point of, well, what happens when you change jobs? Right. Well, you want to make sure that you're not leaving your 401k behind as an afterthought. You want to make sure you're addressing it, you're partnering with a financial advisor to talk about what those options are and make the best decision you can for yourself.
Yeah, and so I guess back to retirement planning.
Hmm.
What are some good tips for the community in that regards?
Again, those beneficiaries, number one.
Yeah.
Number one. Also, you want to make sure when you're looking at retirement planning, it's not just acquiring wealth. It's not just that. It's not just growing your net worth. It's also about finding a place where you feel like you belong. And so, for example, I've helped clients navigate going into retirement, wanting to be in a community that is friendly to LGBTQ. Also, there are healthcare nuances with the community, and those folks want to make sure if they're retiring and they're relocating, for example, that they are going to a place that has healthcare available that they would need or want. And then also, you want to make sure that you are surrounded by a community that appreciates you and has things there for you to enjoy. That's the other part too. It's lifestyle, right? We want to, if we retire and we can go relocate somewhere, you want to go where you're going to feel that you are living your best life.
Yeah, and I think, because we may have more of an audience here, and we've repeated this before, but one of the biggest things I always like bringing up is that, because for me, I always like this, where like, I just think of retirement as the day I retire, right? Do you know what I mean?
I know.
And I'm like going, okay, when I'm 65 or 70, I'm going to have this much money.
Yeah.
And it's just a good reminder for everyone at home that there's a chance you could live till 90. And so like you're going to want to have enough money for whatever that lifestyle or those choices are to make sure you're going to be able to afford everything through your full life, not just the couple years after retiring.
Exactly. It's not a hard line in the sand, which, and we talk to a lot of clients about this is, well, when I retire, then I need to become very conservative in my portfolio. And the response most times is no, you probably don't.
Yeah.
We do want to be sensitive to risk profiles for our clients, but we also want to approach it responsibly and make sure that we are guiding them to a strategy that actually offers them the long-term growth opportunity that they need based on their spending. So that gets into having a spending plan put in place, understanding budgets, and then also, making sure that anything that they want to accomplish in between now and retirement. So this is, take this back to somebody who's just starting out in the working world. There are going to be a lot of goals that precede retirement. Could be building a family, could be buying a home, any of those things. And you want to make sure that you're creating a path that you can follow. Also, you want to think about whether marriage is involved or not. There are a lot of LGBTQ couples that choose for whatever reason not to become married. So that's important because if you're building a life together and you don't have that legal union of marriage, you want to make sure that you're looking at things properly from a tax perspective. So I think of this because we were talking about the 401ks and employment. There's a big difference between Roth and pre-tax IRA monies or pre-tax 401k monies. And if you are not married and you are filing independently of each other from a tax perspective, you want to make sure that you are still taking your planning in at the household level. You don't want to look at it, too singularly, even if as a couple, they choose to have their finances separate, no joined ownership on things and all of that. You just want to make sure you're not leaving any opportunities off the table for your long-term union goals to be able to take advantage of some of those tax incentives. And understanding the difference between Roth monies and pre-tax monies is a pretty big deal, particularly when you get into retirement and you need to start spending those dollars.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times, not just with these savings vehicles, but also, one of the big things I have heard, particularly at our retirement masterclass that we had last year, was folks don't even know that Social Security is taxed. So like, there's some, taxes are a huge part of the equation during retirement as well that you still need to be a pay. Because I think for me, this is me, no one at home. This is me. that was all wake up calls to me too. I'm like, oh man, I still have to deal with taxes when I retire. Like, I think in your head, you're just like, retire. I'm done with like being a grown up. I'm gonna go to retirement and be happy
it'd be
now.
so nice,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just stop adulting. No, you're right. Depending upon your earnings in retirement, I mean, you could have up to 85% of your Social Security benefit taxed.
Yeah.
And so, and putting that together, putting that plan together and structuring it for a couple that is married is a bit more straightforward than a couple that is not married. And so that's another, again, that's something else we need to be mindful of with LGBTQ retirement planning.
Yeah. So I think the last kind of topic that I had that I wanted to talk about is, we had an episode talking about LGBTQ plus and a lot of other topics. And one of the things was kind of like estate planning and, and you talked about with the 401k, like making sure so what if I don't have children or anyone that I want that money to go to? Like what can I do as far as like legacy planning and thinking about that?
Yeah, well, the last thing you want to do is let the state decide for you. And that goes for any individual, right? We spend our whole lives building toward these goals. And then the one thing we all know for certain is we will ultimately pass away. So how do you structure your legacy to flow in a manner with which you can be proud of? And that goes along with your values and your family dynamic and all of those things. So with estate planning, say, for example, you have a couple that they do not have children, but they are very charitable. You want to make sure that you have those charities, all of their information up to date. You want to make sure, again, that's not just on beneficiaries, but also within a will. And you can be very specific within that will. You want to make sure that you're taking advantage of charitable strategies as well, even if it's outside of traditional estate planning. So going back, all of these things dovetail together, right? So going back to needing to spend monies in retirement, if you have pre-tax monies, for example, in an IRA, you get to a certain age into your 70s, you're going to be required to spend to withdraw or distribute a good amount of that account every year for the rest of your life. It generates tax revenue for the government. And you don't have to spend the proceeds. You can reinvest them. You can, use them to pay off debt, whatever it is. You can gift them to a loved one. But
and you're talking about the RMDs, right?
Yes, required minimum distributions. Look at you,
hey,
Jay.
I'm learning things.
I love using acronyms
through the podcast.
You're right. Yes. So those are called required minimum distributions. But what's really nice about those is there is an allowed provision by the IRS allowing us to use another acronym, QCD. Do you know what that is?
Nope.
Qualified charitable distribution.
Okay.
So what that does is it allows you to send monies directly from your IRA to the charitable organization.
Nice.
There's tremendous tax benefits from that versus simply taking monies from an IRA, put them into your checking account, and then making a gift. So, places like any nonprofit that you're interested in, it could be, schools, it could be anything. Just charitable intents to the extent of the law. And that is actually a function and a strategy that I think a lot of people kind of overlook because they just get so focused on, I need to take out this certain amount. And yes, you do, but there are ways that it can be done that satisfy your charitable intent while also satisfying the IRS requirement. Yeah.
And I think one thing too that we have heard is over a few times is that making sure your intentions are within your will and updated at I don't know maybe you have the like kind of how often that should happen, but because you can think that everything's in order, but maybe something changed in your life or you found a different charity that you like and something happens and you never ended up making those updates.
And that's one of the huge benefits of working with a financial advisor is we watch over that with you. Certainly not executing the documents. That's why we have our lawyer friends. Yeah. But making sure that it's not a set it and forget it because life for anybody is dynamic. And as your life changes, your goals may change and your plan needs to change along with it. And that estate planning portion that you mentioned is incredibly important. And also, a charity that's here today might not be around in 5 years. You know, things change for organizations and agencies as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So thanks, Laura. I think that was all great information. Thanks for joining me again, and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Jay.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Please see the full disclosure in our show notes for more information.